Hey guys, it's Sam, and today we're going to be discussing Kenshiro versus the Jojoverse. I was debating, maybe against one or two characters like Ken versus Dio or Ken versus Diablo. We're going for the whole brand this time. I'm going to go over every character that I think would be an interesting fight to see, and that I could see someone asking about. Don't expect me to cover someone like Ken versus Bruford or Mishima and Logs. And also to clarify, I'm a fan of both of these shows, so I'm gonna keep it as fair as I can for both sides. Also, I'm not gonna be dipping my toes into much of part 6 or onwards. Poochie is our cutoff point because I don't believe I have enough knowledge on anyone past that to confidently give an opinion on who I think would win. With all that out of the way, let's begin with good old part 1, Phantom Blood. Here we're gonna kick off the first two fights, Jonathan and Dio. I want to start with Jonathan since he's basically Ken's spiritual child, and there's no way Jonathan could beat Ken at all. Not even including MT, there just isn't a single chance that this works out in Jonathan's favor. Jonathan would honestly be something like a quirky villain of the week for someone on Ken's level. He doesn't have any abilities or strength to beat Kenshiro. His best move is what Ken does on the daily. And considering Ken's fought tons of people like that already with his own brothers and other martial artists, I don't see any way that Jonathan does anything crazy enough to take Ken down. Let alone, Hamon's controlled by breathing. It's a bit morbid, but Ken could just jab one of Jonathan's pressure points so he stopped breathing, or at least enough to completely disable his Hamon as a whole. He doesn't have the defense or stats to even compete. Honestly, I think Jaggy versus Jonathan would be a more fair fight, and I don't even think Jonathan would really win that. On to Dio. It's unfortunate that he stands a better chance than Jonathan, but I doubt he'd be able to freeze Ken, but even if he did, basic elements don't really affect Hokuto users that much, so normal frost wouldn't really do too much to him. I can't imagine Ken getting hit by Space Ripper Stingy Eyes unless he simply let it happen, but even if they did hit, I don't think they'd hurt him enough to matter. He could drain his blood to hurt him, but if Dio gets that close, I can't imagine Ken wouldn't just beat him down. Even with the whole being a vampire thing and being able to live as just a head, Ken's blown up people's entire bodies before when he hits pressure points, so if he attacks Dio, it's pretty much over. I don't see any way Dio can finish Ken, and Ken has every possible way to kill Dio. Again, he wouldn't be much super special in HNK if he was in that verse. On to part 2, we have Cars, Wamu, ACDC, and Joseph. This'll be interesting. As we're starting off with Wamu, funnily enough, there is a Win character in HNK that could make Win strong enough to slice people into pieces. Unfortunately, that character was immediately one-shot by Ken's brother. To be fair though, Wamu and all the Pillar Men here are all extremely intelligent. Probably way smarter than Huey over here. The biggest thing Wamu has compared to John and Dio is range. The area that Wamu can cover can be used to outrange Ken. The problem is, as I said in my Goku vs Kenshiro video, is Ken has beams to hit pressure points. Pillar Men probably don't even have pressure points. Given how Santana and ACDC morph their bodies, I'd assume so as well, but the problem is Nanto exists. Nanto easily cuts people into pieces, even in the first season, so I don't see why it wouldn't have any effects on any of the Pillar Men. What part of body morphing don't you get? They'd be fine! Falco's Nanto. Falco's Nanto is the problem. See, Ken's fought Falco, and Ken has a technique to learn the moves of other people he's fought and master them. It's not a stretch to say that Ken would have his variant of Nanto, which has been said to cut through people at the molecular level. I don't see the Pillarmen being immune to this, let alone Ken also has the ability to clone himself. I can see Wamu getting some good hits in, but Ken is also strong enough to tank a blow or two and get through it. The way I see it, Ken duplicates himself, which would most likely force Wamu to do a hurricane type move. Ken goes through it, then cuts Wamu to pieces. It'd be a more interesting match to watch than Jonathan or Dio, but I don't see Wamu winning. ACDC is interesting. While I did say Hokuto users are resistant to the elements, if it's directly pumped into their blood, I doubt there'd be much defense against it. He 100% has a way to kill Kenshiro. His heat by itself without inserting his blood vessels into Ken wouldn't be enough to stop him. And heat specifically seems incredibly ineffective against Hokuto users. I don't see ACDC living long enough to do the blood vessel thing. He doesn't have the same sort of area coverage as Wamu does, and even Joseph was able to dodge out of the way of his strands. Considering Ken isn't a slouch in speed in the slightest, as he's dodged Han's punch, which was so fast it didn't have a shadow, I don't see ACDC having a chance here. I'm gonna save the best for last, so next we have Joseph. He's weaker than Jonathan, but smarter. Unfortunately, Ken's fought tricksters before, and I don't see Joseph devising a plan that could kill Ken. I think it's really as simple as that. He's not as strong as Jonathan in raw strength, so when Ken inevitably gets in front of him, he dies. You can argue, Joseph beat the Pillarman, you think he can't beat some buff dude? An important aspect to that argument is Haman hard counters Pillarman. It's basically their weakness. Ken's not a Pillarman, so Joseph's biggest advantage and strength is gone for this fight entirely. For cars, this one I've actually heard multiple times. People have said Ken versus the Pillarman before, but I've seen quite a few Ken versus Cars convos for good reasons. Out of everyone I've said so far, Cars stands the best chance by far. Not even just because of Ultimate Cars, but just by virtue of Light Mode. Light Mode could, without no sugarcoating, fuck Ken up. And it's so fast, I don't think Ken could dodge every single swing that Cars could do with his blades. The counter argument I've seen is that Ken could blow up Cars with his pressure points, but as Pillarmen can just kind of wiggle and twist their bodies around, I don't think this would be super helpful. Relying on just Nanto, I think he could cut up Cars the same way I said for AC/DC, and the duplication thing I mentioned for Wamu could also work as the clones are capable of attacking on their own. I honestly feel this could go either way, but it leans a lot more towards Kenshiro. Something like 70% Kenshiro, 30% Cars. Now as for Ultimate Cars, that's a lot different. Ultimate Cars is immortal. While Ken's Nanto can cut at the molecular level, Cars can heal at the molecular level. He's extremely smart, extremely powerful, and can melt people with the strength of the sun, along with everything else I've said. I think base Ken doesn't really have any sort of way to counteract Cars being, well, Uber Hacks invincible. I don't see him beating Cars normally. Muso Tensei Ken, it makes it even in an odd way, but while I don't think Ken can do much to Cars, Cars now just can't kill Ken. I think in this scenario it would be a tie. While some people may bring up what I said last time and say check if Hanryu Tenha could kill him since it affects time, space, and gravity, I don't think it would be enough to kill Cars. Anything Ken could withstand, Cars would probably be relatively unaffected. The only argument that I think remaining for Ken to just straight up win in this scenario would be if Ken went inside Cars. I know that sounds weird, but let me explain what I mean. In MT, you're the embodiment of nothingness. If anything goes through you, you're practically non-existent for a moment. Some people argue it doesn't work like this, but when Ken fights Rao and they went through each other, it caused both of them to go down. If this hits someone who's not in that same state of nothingness, I think it's safe to say it would have the effect of something similar to a black hole. Something similar to Vanilla Ice for you JoJo fans. Now, this is where it gets really oddly specifically meta. Ken would have to get his body to match Cars' body size in order for this to work, but other than the fact that Cars can manipulate his body, Ken's 6'1" and Cars is 6'8", so what I'm getting at is, since Ken isn't tall enough to erase Cars' whole body, and Cars can regenerate extremely fast, this fight becomes a stalemate just because Ken's too short. Ken can't kill Cars because Cars is invincible, and Cars can't kill Ken because Ken is invincible. A pure draw. Now on to part 3. I'm not going to mention Jotaro since I've already done a video on it, and I'm not going to mention Dio either for the same reasons because I feel like the same points go for both of them. But for those of you who don't feel like going back and watching my video on it, in summary, Ken was able to break out of Hanryu Tenha, a time-space void manipulation type move. I don't think the world would affect him because it doesn't seem as intense as that. Neither Jotaro or Dio have any feats that I think would really harm Ken in any meaningful way other than a scrape or two, or have any real way to open him up. Along with the fact that since both Jotaro and Dio have human bodies, it means they're not immune to being killed via pressure points, which can blow up the entire body, so even Dio's severed head wouldn't survive. I don't see either of them taking a victory here, and given they're pretty much the strongest stands in part 3, I think it's a given I don't believe the rest of the characters would fare much better than Dio or Jotaro. And including MT, there's literally not a single villain that could beat him. The only argument someone could make is, unironically, Darby and someone I'll get to after him. Which in a technical sense, if Ken fought Darby the same way Jotaro did, then I don't see Ken coming up with a plan similar to Jotaro's, as it doesn't really match his character. I also do believe Ken is fast enough to hit or kill Darby before he notices, but I'm not positive on that since we don't know how fast Darby's reaction time is, so Darby at least could maybe kill Ken. The second is the overpowered Vanilla Ice. Now I believe if Vanilla Ice hits Ken in MT or not, he's most likely dead. You can debate the MT as we aren't entirely sure how far nothingness goes, but at least 100% base Ken would die. But given how Vanilla Vanilla Ice works, I don't think he'd be able to hit Ken at all. Ken can sense energy by itself, so I don't think it'd be hard for him to dodge Cream, and when Vanilla Ice sticks his little head out, Ken could just beat him down and hit one of his pressure points. On to part 4, we have Josuke, Okuyasu, Koichi, Kira, and Rohan. Starting off with Josuke, I don't believe it. Josuke's a good fighter, but I can't imagine a world where he somehow beats Ken. It'd basically be like fighting Star Platinum without the world, which is pretty one-sided for Ken, I'd like to believe. Josuke would be able to build things, which is cute, but Ken's destroyed things like tanks and entire buildings before, so I don't see him not being able to destroy whatever Josuke makes. The whole Angelo thing, if it did hypothetically hit Ken, it could kill or straight disable him. The problem is Ken's so fast, I don't see him landing enough hits like that to do all that if he can even land any. The chances are extremely low in Josuke's favor for base Ken. Onto Okuyasu, it's pretty much the same thing with Vanilla Ice, except the stand user's always visible. Of course, if Okuyasu hits him, I think it'd be immediately over, but Okuyasu's known for being kinda dumb, so I don't really see this happening. It's a possibility, but I don't see a way he hits Ken unless Ken was asleep or disabled somehow. Koichi's interesting. Act 3 is a really good ability. He can make Ken heavy and just beat him up right there. The problem is Ken has the beams that can hit pressure points, so he can just shoot at Koichi before he enters stand range. We also don't know just how heavy Koichi makes people. We've seen Ken go against someone who affects gravity, but instead of levitation, Act 3 pushes you downward. So it's even possible that Ken could entirely nullify the effects of Act 3, but we can't be 100% sure about it. Even if Act 3 did affect Ken, Koichi doesn't really have any way of finishing him off, so I would say this one goes to Ken. Rohan's stand is interesting too. Heaven's Door could do a lot to Ken if he could get him to fall for his ability, which is very much possible. But he could fight with his eyes closed! He can, and in a fight where Ken knows exactly who Rohan is, he'd 100% destroy him, no questions asked. But unless Ken somehow magically reads his mind and automatically knows what his ability is, it's most likely not happening. I also don't believe MT would affect this fight since I don't think it would change the functionality of Heaven's Door. But I do believe if Rohan kept trying to show Kenshiro things and he caught on how his stand works, he'd clean up immediately. So it's really a 50-50. Either Ken doesn't catch it in time and looks, or he beats Rohan so fast, or catches on and immediately blitzes him. There's no in between. Now on to Kira. It's pretty much the same thing with Okuyasu. Killer Queen in theory could immediately kill Kenshiro if he hit him, but the problem is Kira isn't really good in close quarters combat. We saw this when Josuke immediately beat him up the second he got close to him. It seems when he meets a competent fighter, his only real strategy is A, blow them up, and if that doesn't work, he goes for plan B, bites the dust, which either wouldn't be really effective since Ken could kill him before he does either. Sheer Heart Attack doesn't really work unless they're in a scenario where they're really far away, and Ken wouldn't be incapacitated by something like Sheer Heart Attack's explosions, as pain like that isn't new to him. So he could either A, do the same thing Jotaro did, just not get knocked out, or B, tank the explosion and then just fling the thing. I don't see the bubbles hitting Ken either. Since he met Huey, he could probably redirect them with his air. So, long story short, no, I don't think Ken's losing to Kira. Part 5. This is the one I low-key made this video for. We mainly have Giorno, Diavolo, and just for spice, Fugo. I'm going to start off with Fugo because, funnily enough, I think Ken needs his strongest form to beat him. MT might be required because, as every JoJo fan knows, Fugo has a stupidly powerful stand. If his poison touches you, it melts your flesh. Ken doesn't really have any answer to this other than MT. You can argue that Ken might be physically tough enough or able to make his aura resist poison, as he did have an aura effect to help him resist acid before, but we have no way of knowing just how intense Fugo's acid actually is. So for all that we know, the only way he can win this fight in base form is if Purple Haze is far away from Fugo to start with and Ken just blitzes him. Otherwise, Ken needs MT to resist it. I just thought it was funny out of everybody, Fugo's the one that would cause problems. Now on to Giorno. Giorno kinda has cheating powers, so this'll be interesting. He has a far better chance than any of the other main JoJos. He has so many odd ways of doing damage we should go over. First of all, the frog thing. I believe Ken could do something similar to Zeppelin when he hit through the frog. Feel free to correct me. I don't think he's ever done anything like this, but I don't think it'd be a stretch for him to do something like it. Giorno's punching speed should allow him to land hits on Ken, but I don't think he's strong enough to take him out with just punches. As for the forming trees and life stuff, I can see it shocking Ken, but he'd probably be able to sense the life energy in Giorno's creations. Not saying they wouldn't get a hit or two on him, but it would be hard for him to get more than that. The whole speeding up your brain thing could probably mess Ken up, but he could probably get over it himself, unlike Bruno. But Giorno could take those moments to get some good hits in. Also, another point is if Giorno recognizes Ken's attacking his pressure points, I can imagine he'd do something weird like make frog armor. I can see this one being the most of a tussle because Giorno's stance kinda busted, all things considered, since it kinda does everything. I can see either side winning this, to be honest. Giorno doesn't have H&K durability, but his abilities do so much. If Ken doesn't immediately kill him, I can see it being a struggle. I feel it's more in Kenshiro's favor just for him being able to take more hits though, so I'd probably give it to Ken 70% of the time and Giorno 30. Giorno would have to devise a plan to kill Kenshiro, as just punching him wouldn't really do too much, while Ken can fight Giorno pretty much the same way he fights anybody. Now, for Musou Tensei vs Requiem. This one, I don't think anyone can scale. It might be disappointing to hear, but that's honestly how I think it is. What I can tell you is, going off of non-canon events, since those are the only things I can go off of for this, since Giorno couldn't really affect Dio over Heaven, which is the only other reality warper he ran into, I don't think Ken would get the whole "oh wah" thing Diavolo did. But I do believe Ken could get hit by Requiem. While it's all just guesswork, judging off of how Ken could only get hit by another reality warping ability like MT or Onryu Tenha, I don't think it's a stretch to say something like Requiem could hit him. Past that, we never really saw Requiem fight. He beat down Diavolo, but it wasn't a back and forth where his abilities were really well explained. You can say the same thing about Musou Tensei, but you keep using that. How's that right? Musou Tensei isn't well defined either, but even in its brief appearances, we do know it's more defined than Requiem. We understand what it does for the most part, so there aren't too many blanks. MT's been used 3 times, with one being a fight that lasted 2 or 3 episodes and the other one's almost immediately dealing with their problems, while Requiem was used in 1 scene, and that's all we have for it. So, for this one, I'm gonna say we simply don't know how it would end. For Diavolo, with no MT, this one could be really interesting. While Diavolo's strength feats, like most JoJo characters in comparison to H&K, is pretty mid, his ability to skip time would make it very hard for Ken to deal with him. Unlike when he's blinded, Ken would have to try to predict everything Diavolo's doing, and by using Epitaph, Diavolo could easily see what's about to happen. Diavolo's really blessed it, to a point I don't think many people understand. But there is another factor to this. Does Diavolo even understand what Kenshiro's doing? For starters, Epitaph lets Diavolo see 10 seconds into the future, but most of the time he doesn't show himself. But the only time he's shown himself in his own prediction was against Giorno, and that's when he started to get a bit shaken. If this fight starts and Diavolo reads Ken's 100 Fist Rush and then some Nanto swipes off the start, which we can assume Ken would open with or something similar like that, Ken can use Huey's air swipes to catch Diavolo completely off guard and get a free slash on him. And given how I keep saying JoJo durability is far under H&K characters, even a slight air swipe could probably heavily damage Diavolo. Ken's also fought Han, whose punches were so fast they didn't leave a shadow. We don't know if Diavolo could see something that fast even while skipping time, so he might think Ken's just standing still and might catch a punch that could lead to his death. Moreover, Ken can take multiple hits from Diavolo. Even his patent "I'ma pop my arm through your chest" might not work on Ken because of his durability. And since Diavolo doesn't have a one-shot kill on him, it's gonna take a lot of punches to put Ken down. For me, realistically, I imagine Diavolo reads Ken's movements and about to see him duplicate himself, so he tries to gut Ken. It doesn't work and Ken just beats him up when time resumes. There's a whole lot of factors at play here. I think Ken's smart enough to devise some kind of strategy to be able to hit Diavolo after he finishes his time skip, while Diavolo doesn't really have any move he can use to finish off Ken before they get to that point. If Musou Tensei is involved, it probably just looks like Requiem versus Diavolo. I don't think Ken would be affected by future readings since he exists outside of reality. While he can't reverse time skip like Requiem can, Diavolo wouldn't be able to hit Ken anymore. He'd probably try to time skip and hit Ken and get immediately destroyed after he notices his arm goes through him. I don't see any other way this goes. Diavolo would have officially lost the second Musou Tensei cuts on. Now we're gonna go on to part 6. I'm gonna be covering Jolene since she's the main JoJo and I feel obligated to include her, and Poochie from the start and end of the show. Huge spoilers if you're an anime-only fan. For Jolene, it's not happening. She doesn't have any realistic way of dealing with Ken. To her credit, she might be able to make string armor to resist a few punches, but Ken would wear it down after a few moments, so it doesn't really matter. Her strings wouldn't really mean too much to Ken because he could just rip them off or be able to resist them squeezing him. And in melee range, Jolene doesn't really have anything to deal with Ken that he couldn't handle, so I think this is just a done deal. For Pucci, I'm going to be talking about White Snake and Made in Heaven. Let's start with White Snake, because I think it's an interesting concept. As anyone who's seen part 6 might be saying, Pucci's stand only affects people with stands. Ken doesn't have a stand. We never saw this move hit a normal person since Haman and stuff doesn't really exist anymore. There wasn't a reason for it to hit a normal person. But going off on a non-canon route, I'd assume it just put you in a coma like Jotaro was. Going off of that, if Ken gets his disc stolen, it could be a real problem, but I don't believe Pucci could hit Ken. I don't mean like in Musou Tensei or anything, I just don't imagine him landing a blow on Ken. Like most stand-based enemies, their main ability is usually the strong part and not their physical fighting prowess. If Pucci misses the snatch, he's dead, but in most scenarios, he wouldn't even be able to land that. Since Pucci is a bit under Jolene in straight up fighting prowess when it comes down to fist, it's over. Pucci would stand literally no chance at all if he misses. Now Made in Heaven, on the other hand, I think it's a similar situation to Cars. I don't see any way Ken doesn't enter MT upon seeing Pucci just zip around, but there is one thing to note here. Pucci can die while in Made in Heaven. Very difficult, but very possible. Some HNK fans may say, Han punch faster than light, this shouldn't even be that hard. Pucci is hitting and moving faster than that at this point. I don't see Ken landing basic punches or techniques on Pucci. You can argue that MT Ken may not be affected by time moving that fast, but you have to remember, this is affecting everything, not just Ken like in something like Unryu Tenha. Second, disregarding the whole time thing, Pucci himself is moving stupidly fast. So outside of Pucci throwing something, it really wouldn't matter much if this was true anyways. Pucci, however, can't hit Ken. He has no functional way of hitting Kenshiro, as he doesn't have any reality warping attacks other than changing the universe, which wouldn't really do too much since it doesn't change you unless you're deceased. There are two ways Ken could kill Pucci though, which makes me lean more towards him. As I said in the Jotaro video, Unryu Tenha is an option. Some people told me, but you need evil Ki to be able to do this. Hyo did it, and Hyo wasn't necessarily an evil villain, so I don't see why Ken couldn't. Unryu distorts time and space, so the effects of Made in Heaven could be overruled. You can't argue that Pucci could accelerate things like Time Stop like it says on the wiki, but Time Stop is, as you can guess, a time-related ability. And it does warp reality, but not to the same extent. Unryu Tenha is a focused reality warping ability. I don't see any way Pucci could outspeed it, since it doesn't really focus on the time control aspect. And even then, Jotaro's Time Stop worked for a moment, so I don't see any reason Unryu wouldn't. Even if Pucci could make a reaction window really small, Ken doesn't need too many hits to kill someone. If he hit one of Pucci's pressure points to make him stop breathing with any one of his strikes, he dies, since Pucci doesn't get any special resistances with his stand. The other way I can see Ken winning is if Pucci tries to attack him. I know this sounds goofy, but it's the truth. You cannot harm someone in MT with physical attacks without harming yourself, like I said in the Cars fight. When two MT users pass through each other, it nearly killed them. If Pucci did one of those light speed dashes through Ken, he might come out the other side looking like Abdul's arms. You can argue, but if we're going off of what we saw, he should just go through injured instead of just vanishing. Even if we said Pucci could go through Ken and he'd just get heavily injured like Rao did, that injury might just kill Pucci. Pucci isn't a martial artist like Rao was. He's not as physically tough, so him just bursting into wounds could just kill him. But even if it didn't, if it knocks him to the ground, that would still be enough time for Ken to kill him. The only way this fight's a draw is if Pucci doesn't attempt to attack Ken at all. 8 out of 10 times this fight goes to Ken, with the other 2 times being a draw. So, this was a long video. I'm sure will stir up conversation. I'm genuinely curious what the comments will be like, and as always, I'm glad to discuss with any of you. With all that out of the way, I've been M, and I am out.